James Waterson. It's a pleasure to have a real live historian on Emirates today. We've got authors by the dozen, but I think the number of historians I've interviewed is probably you can count on the fingers of one hand. So welcome to Emirates, and tell us about your latest book that you'll be discussing at the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature in March, coming up shortly.
There'll be two books that I'll be discussing at the festival, I hope. The first will be Defending Heaven, which was a history of the Chinese resistance to the Mongol invasions, and I think that'll be quite pertinent because John Mann, who's been a fantastic writer on the histories of the Mongols with his books on Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan, will be obviously the riposte to such a world view, because I'll be presenting the Chinese world view of this long war, and he'll be presenting the Mongol point of view. We'll also have Justin Morozzi hopefully with us at some point as well, and he's written a magnificent book on Tamerlane, the great Central Asian conqueror, and that sort of brings into the Middle East as well, which is where I started my writing career and where I started writing histories. But what I also want to present to the audience is a book that I've just completed, and it should be out in March, just in time. And that will be a history of Vlad Dracula. So this is pinning events in the Balkans around one particular character. Of course, we're all familiar with Dracula, but equally we're all quite unfamiliar with Dracula. We're unfamiliar with his successes and his failures against the Ottoman invaders, and it'll also be really nice to compare and contrast him with a very successful tyrant in the form of Genghis Khan, and I'm sure John Mann will be talking about that at length at the festival, and then basically a very unsuccessful tyrant in the form of Vlad Dracula. And I think that we can learn a lot. I don't think anyone's ever going to have the art of strategy according to Vlad Dracula or Genghis Khan like we have to do with Sun Tzu or Sun Tzu, as so many economists and business writers like to quote him as a strategic. But Vlad Dracula is certainly an absolutely appalling leader of a country, managed to isolate himself, managed to alienate everybody through his brutality, through his lack of ability to reach out to people, and I think there are quite a lot of lessons about leadership you can learn from a truly appalling tyrant.
Now that's fascinating, James, because I think for most people they imagine Dracula to be a fictional character, but there was a real Dracula.
Indeed, yes, and he, as I say, he was quite an unfortunate character to be a contemporary of Mehmed II, certainly one of the greatest of the Ottoman emperors. He's also there at the right time when Byzantium falls, Constantinople falls in 1453, so he's a great character to write about, Vlad Dracula, because he passes through great events and he's surrounded by some true giants of the age. As an individual himself, he's actually quite hard to trace, which may have been the reason why Bram Stoker chose him for his eponymous vampire. I think the issue with Vlad Dracula is you have to piece so many pieces together. Balkan history is really quite difficult to write because you've got Serbian sources, you've got a lot of Greek sources, you've got the Ottoman sources, which are really very useful because a lot of the sources that you come from the European side are pure propaganda, and a lot of the things that you read about Vlad Dracula are also pure propaganda, that he was a great mighty warrior, whereas in fact when you read it from the Ottoman point of view, turning that around, you realise that he was what we might call these days a terrorist, in fact, if nothing more, and certainly a brutalizer of his own people with a fairly poor overall statecraft, but actually a brilliant soldier on the field and a brilliant minor engagement tactician. He was certainly the only person to come close to kill the great Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror.
How did you go about researching all of this? Because it all happened a very, very long time ago, and I would imagine that you don't have, as we have now, written accounts of his activities, photographs, all that sort of thing that a modern historian might find very useful. But this all happened 500-600 years ago. So how do you go about it?
Well, sure. I mean, sometimes I title myself as a historian, but I more often title myself as a writer of histories. There's a vast amount of work being done by some superb academics who have worked with translation. It was really quite lovely in 2011 to be at the Literary Festival and sit with Professor Halim. We were discussing my book on Salahuddin at the time, he managed to create a fantastic English translation of the Quran, which has changed our understanding of the culture and also, of course, of the holy book on which this culture was built. It's giving tremendous insight. So really, I stand on the shoulders of giants. A huge volume of work in translation. I am a little bit more restricted in my linguistic ability. I have a wife, fortunately, who is a fantastic translator of French and Italian and Chinese for me, who helps me out enormously. But yes, you are really standing on the shoulders of some superb academics, particularly those who have gone into the field to translate the Ottoman sources, because they're very, very difficult linguistically and very challenging. So yeah, I've been lucky, in fact. But gathering this together, I mean, this is one thing we should say, has become very much easier in the last few years. The internet may have many evils about it, many problems, but it is fantastic for academics to come together on sites such as ResearchGate and so on. There's so much information and so much generosity of information being offered up these days that it does make the task a lot easier.
Now, this is your third Festival of Literature that you've attended. So what's the attraction for you, apart from the fact that the sun is shining and it's a nice place to come?
Well, I meet a lot of writers who say they really enjoy writing. Personally, I absolutely hate it. I really enjoy it once it's finished, but putting 120,000 words together is an extremely painful and lonely business. And I think that is the nice thing for writers. It is a lonely business. It requires solitude. So then to meet fellow travellers or people of the same feather, it's really quite a delight. And certainly I'm looking forward this year to seeing Tony Calderbank again. I saw him at the inaugural in 2009. He's a great translator of modern Arabic fiction. He's bringing things to Western eyes in English, which I think is hugely important, and he's just a delightful guy. So we'll see him. I've seen him in 2009, saw him in 2011, so it would be fantastic to see him again in 2016. Of course, there's some other people. There was the legend of Frank McCourt was at the inaugural festival, and of course he's passed away sadly, but I remember him standing in Maurice Flanagan's garden, the Emirates chairman, and giving a great speech thanking Maurice Flanagan and also joking with him and ribbing him quite a lot about business class service and so on. You shouldn't be waking people up to offer them drinks on these services, he said, etc. And it was fantastic to see a man you've seen him on the page, you've seen the words on the page, to actually see him in the flesh. So I mean, again, this is the other thing we suffer from as writers. We send out our goods, we send out our products, we don't know what the response is. So sitting with the public, being attacked by them occasionally, being given a pretty hard ride, but also engaging with them is quite fabulous, because it's a very distant art. It is a little bit like being an artist, because you create a painting, you don't know what people make of it. Being a musician, we're always a bit jealous, I think, of musicians actually as writers, because they're there in the moment with the audience, or can be at least in live audience. So this really is our only chance. We spend a year creating a book, sometimes 2 years. The book I wrote on China took 2 years to produce, and we don't get a lot of contact with the people who have the end product. I mean, I'm working in television these days with the Discovery Channel. I have a program coming out in February on the Ismaili assassins. And I'm working with Jordanian television, trying to create a series, dramatised series, but based around Islam's golden age, around the 11th century in Baghdad. And that's an exciting project. But again, we don't get to meet the public in the way that a musician does. It's not live. So I think these kind of events are hugely important for writers, and also it gives people like me, I mean, an absolute luminary. John Julius Norwich is coming to speak at the festival this year in March, and, well, I practically broke my teeth on his books. His book on the Normans in southern Italy is a classic. I mean, it will never be surpassed, I think, for the skill, he's managed to do scholarship, but it's still a page turner, and he did the same with Byzantium. A truly great writer, so it would just be magnificent just to stand near him. So for lovers of history, the place to be is Dubai, early March for the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature. You'll be there, James, and other historians. It's going to be a great 12 days. I'm looking forward to it immensely. I think the festival has got better year on year, and this one looks really tremendously exciting. Well, welcome to Emirates World and the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature channel, and my special guest today on this Emirates flight is the children's author, the renowned, very famous children's author, Jacqueline Wilson. Welcome to Emirates, Jacqueline, and how lovely to see you again.
I'm thrilled to bits to be coming to the festival. Festival. It's my absolute favourite literary festival.
Is it? You're not just saying that.
Not just saying that. Where else do you get treated like royalty by everybody, do huge events, get a chance to meet all the other authors, and get such wonderful hospitality?
You've been before. Tell me what it was like. Tell me what the whole experience was like.
Well, it's just like being on holiday, really. I mean, I'm doing 2 events, now actually 3 events this time, and get a chance to talk about my books, and then you do a very happy signing, and you meet so many different people. But also there's a chance to go out. You can go into the desert, you can go and see all the amazing shopping malls, you can go up the Burj Khalifa. You are spoilt for choice, you really are.
Now, you said you're doing 2 presentations. Would you like to just give us a quick insight, a quick preview of what you'll be talking about?
One time I'm going to be talking about my Hetty Feather books, which are set in Victorian times, and particularly the latest book, Little Stars. And then another time I'm talking about a very modern book, Katie, and 1 or 2 others of my books that have been proved quite popular recently. And then I'm also doing the Education Day, which I think will be a bit of both.
Tell us what you've been working on since the last time you came out to Dubai. I know you're a prolific author. I was looking at the huge number of books you've written. So what's been the latest project for you?
I've been working extremely hard. Family and friends have said, for heaven's sake, you're getting on a bit. Why don't you calm down, take it easy? I seem to be doing more and more. Last year I published my 100th book, Opal Plumstead, set in Edwardian times, and then I thought, well, I've often been telling children I'll write 100 books and then said jokingly, and then I'll keel over. Well, I thought, I'm jolly well not going to keel over, so very quickly I wrote book 101, The Butterfly Club, a modern book for slightly younger girls. 102 was Katie, my reworking of the children's classic What Katie Did. Number 3 is Little Stars, and very shortly, late spring, there will be a modern book out called Rent a Bridesmaid, and now I've started a brand new Victorian book. So I don't stop. I carry on and on, hopefully.
I'm just exhausted just hearing you talking about it, let alone actually doing it. Where do you get all the ideas and the inspiration from?
I truly don't know. Happiness for me is while I'm writing one book, I get an idea for another one, so I can dwell on that and just take my time sorting it all out while I'm still writing the book before. And so far I haven't got muddled, but you never know.
Now, how disciplined are you, Jacqueline? I'm here in your lovely sitting room in Kingston upon Thames in Surrey, UK, but I'm sure the phone never stops ringing. People like me come along, want to speak with you. You've got speaking engagements galore. How do you discipline yourself to produce this prodigious output?
Every morning, probably one of the first things I do is actually write. In my pyjamas still, I have breakfast in bed, have my little treat, and then I start writing on the computer. And as long as I've written 500 words, I prefer 1,000, but if I've written 500 words, if I've got a very, very busy day, that will do me fine. And I'm lucky I don't get writer's block. I can write quite quickly, so that after an hour on a good day, I've got 1,000 words in my computer, and then, if necessary, I can go out, I can do events, I can have a chat like today.
So when you say when you get up first thing in the morning, are you an early riser?
Not really early. Unfortunately, I have the 2 animals, and Jacob the cat generally thinks breakfast is at 6 o'clock. Well, he might get fed, but then certainly I go back to sleep. But Jackson, the dog, from about 7:30, will sort of be scratching at the door, jumping up on the bed, and